Okay, wait.
Oh,
Welcome
I'm
to the
gonna win
AI
that
show.
one.
I'm Scott Stephenson, co-founder of Deepgram. With me is Jeff Ward, a.k.a. Susan.
Hi, all.
He's a Navy pilot, acclaimed dad joke writer, and AI scientist at Deepgram. On the AI show, we talk about all things AI. What is it? What can you do with it? How does it affect you? Where is it going? We are live and ready to answer your questions. Comment on YouTube and Twitch, or tweet at Deepgram AI to join in. Today, we're asking the question, the big question.
The big question.
How is today's AI boom different from the past?
Oh, yeah. So we're in a boom?
Yeah,
Oh.
I think so. We're definitely in a boom.
I didn't notice.
Yeah.
I guess, some pretty big things like, self-driving cars and, translation.
Translation being solved, yeah.
Yeah, maybe we're actually in a boom
AlphaGo.
now. AlphaGo, one of my personal favorites.
Yep, it gets you deep down.
It gets me deep down. It hit,
Yeah.
I'll beat you, AlphaGo.
You can also look. It's a personal vendetta.
It is.
Yeah. You can also look at the amount of money that has been dumped in by VCs and things like that.
Oh.
Like, yeah, we're definitely in a boom here.
Yeah.
But this is not the first AI boom.
Oh, well, yeah, there's been some really good peaks in the past there. I mean, look back at the 50s. Some cool stuff happened in the 50s with Minsky and a whole bunch of others,
Yeah.
really kind of defining things.
Yep.
We fast forward in the 80s and,
Yeah.
great
the
things there.
Perceptron way back.
Yeah.
50s, 60s, etc.
Yeah.
That name still sticks around in AI now.
Yeah, I perceive this Tron.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. And then the 80s, it came up again. Basically, it's like, hey, we kind of figured out back propagation, and we have some more compute, and things like that.
Yeah, and again, the roots of AlphaGo in the 80s
Yeah.
with reinforcement learning really kind of get
Yep.
nailed there. And leading into the 90s, some great
Yeah.
stuff from IBM with Deep Blue and Deeper Blue.
Mm-hmm.
And, I beat some guy named Kasparov at a game.
Yeah, somebody. A nobody.
A nobody.
Yeah.
Solving checkers.
Yep.
That's another great one that,
Yep. Checkers, chess with
strongly
Kasparov.
solving
Yeah.
checkers.
Yep. And then into the late 2000s, basically. So 2008, 2010, 2012 really is when things started to pick up again.
Yeah.
And that was like image recognition, deep learning, et cetera. And we're still in it now.
Yeah.
But in the past, it wasn't just booms, right? In between, there were what everybody calls the AI winter or AI winters, I guess, where like funding drops from like research funding from the government, also just like VC funding drops, et cetera. And so some questions now are like, is this one different?
Yeah.
Is this one going to peter out too?
Yeah. Well, I think you see something pretty standard there of, some piece of the problem, some piece of the pie gets solved. It piques interest. And then everybody realizes it's not the whole answer. And
Yeah, it
goes back down.
In order to get this stuff to work pretty well, you got to have like talent, so smart people, etc. You've got to have computational power,
Yeah.
and like the scales there of what people thought you would need in the past. Like, we're a little underappreciated. You need like many more times what you would actually think. The amount of data that you need to train them, huge. And then just the architectures, like just putting it all together. How would you actually train a model? How does it work, etc. So, there's a lot of things in there, and it's like you solve one of them, and then you're like, whoa, yes, we're getting somewhere. But then you run into a brick wall because you don't have the other ones.
Yeah, but what really makes this right now different from the past, or is there some true difference? Because
I think so.
We had data growing.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah. Well, essentially the big difference is like the internet exists. You can get tons of data, and the underlying structure of models and how you train them and whatnot has been pretty well fleshed out. You don't have to be an absolutely cutting edge researcher tinkering in order to get anything to work. Like you can get a lot of things to work, even though you can go pip install something, as an engineer or whatever, and like start training models and whatnot. It's like, whoa, so it's pretty accessible. But anyway, I think that plus the massive amounts of data that you get through the internet, and then the way that you can share with everybody on the internet, this is how you do this stuff. I mean, it's really hard stuff, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's complicated, it's whatever, but you can make tutorials, you can make videos, you can whatever, and then people start to, whoa, okay, they can really get some traction there and like put it all together. So,
well, I'll tell you this. I think there's one key difference between this wave and the previous, and that's it's practical.
Well, yeah.
Companies are making lots and lots of money off of this. Whereas in the past,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, we might be able to make money, and it, that didn't work out as well. Now it's like we are. These tools are fine tuning sales pipelines. They're giving real ability to rip into data sources they couldn't see before and process
Powering,
before.
web search,
generating entire new industries like potentially the autonomous vehicle world is doing. Like there's just real value is coming out of it. Whereas I'm not saying the previous booms didn't provide value, but they weren't quite the value that you make green stuff off of.
In the past, people kind of put the horse before the cart. Just like when the internet was first coming around, smart people that were deep in it realized, like, whoa, this is going to connect the world. And this is like in the 80s, right? And like, this is going to connect the world. You're going to be buying things, you're going to be doing this, you're going to be whatever. But if you dumped $100 million into companies back then to do those things, like they would have tanked and not existed. You had to wait 10 years for everything to kind of, congeal into something that's actually viable.
Yep, the soil was fertile.
Yeah.
You got to have the idea and a fertile ground to plant it in.
Yeah, so like the previous booms were, the first one is more academic, right? It's like, hey, funded by the government, people in academia, and just handful of people working on it. Like, whoa, machines can learn, but only in these very specific ways, et cetera. And we haven't sort of generalized the problem and whatnot. And then it kind of dies out for a while. But then, hey, we solve some more problems, and then it gets a lot more interest again, like in the 80s and into the early 90s.
Yep.
And then dies out again, and then comes back. Hey, this though is catching on pretty big, and like you can point to real examples and large amounts of money that are made by AI now, rather than just speculating that it actually will happen.
Yeah, totally. And that gets into what are the forces really driving it now? Like you talked about the forces in the past driving it. Pretty academic forces were driving, and traditional governmental research agencies,
DARPA, et cetera.
But again, this boom area is showing a very steep turn towards more corporate money-based research that, because again, they're getting value out of it.
Yeah, it was kind of a transition from the very beginning is like mostly academic. Then in like 80s, et cetera, you could get funding to like build companies and things like that, but then they kind of tanked. And funding for research, academic research, also went up, but then tanked again, et cetera. But now it's kind of flipped, where the money, the data, the tools, the computing power are all in the companies, and the academics, like the funding is lagging behind. They don't have the resources, et cetera.
Yeah, well, people are jumping into the commercial sector to actually do it, actually solve these problems and attack these problems, on the battleground, on the forefront of the battleground, so to speak. It's pretty, I think that other things have gone in the past there, where, some problem stays purely academic, and finally it catches in a corporate way. Yeah. Something useful and practical, and you see the academia get drained and go into practical use. Yeah. And we'll probably see, sometime in the future where academia will slowly fill up again as the standard way of doing things is laid out, and researchers go back into doing weird, crazy
where monetizing it becomes boring again.
Yeah, exactly. Where the exciting stuff is
it's more on the cutting edge, and that you can't make too much money from it yet. So like go back to academia. Yeah. That makes sense. So at least right now, a lot of the action is in the business world. Companies building AI teams or having their own data science teams working on things, et cetera. But why are they doing this now? The companies, like, why is AI coming into companies like now? Like, why does it make sense?
Why doesn't it?
Why doesn't it
make sense? Yeah. I mean, it's all the things that you said before. The ground is fertile. Yep. Finally. Yeah. And they're planting these seeds that are getting huge amounts of revenue. I mean, just think about the role that reinforcement learning, a classic way of trying to take a series of actions and get rewards out of, is affecting the web and affecting how we guide people to click on what we want them to click and buy the things we want them to buy, and how much that is shaping product placement and all these different things. I mean, when you go on to your favorite storefront site X and it says I suggest these 6 things for you.
And recommendation system.
You click on the one, one of those down below 1 out of 3 times. That's probably 1 more time out of 3 than would have happened 10 years ago.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. And that translates to real dollar signs immediately now. These purely academic ideas are just starting to really find true problems that they're solving in the corporate world, and we're getting success after success after success. And that turns into billions of dollars.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think you can look back at other booms in the world like steam or electricity. Like, okay, electricity in 1900, what did that look like? Or radioactivity. Back in 1900, people thought mix some radioactive stuff into your drink and drink it because it's going to make you healthy, right? So have some radioactive tonic, etc.
You get a good healthy glow out of it.
Yeah, yeah. and so that sort of stems from like not knowing exactly what it is, but that it's really remarkable, right?
Yes.
And so let's just sprinkle it into everything. And so you kind of see that today of like anything that has AI mentioned in it is like, whoa, awesome, right? Well, electricity and radioactivity don't get put into everything, but electricity does matter in a lot of cases, right? We don't just shock ourselves all the time now to like have better health or anything like that. That's what people did that back in the day. It's like, okay, let's quit that one, but let's power our homes with it. Let's build washing machines. Let's whatever. Like, okay, it has a certain thing that it should be doing, and some other things it probably shouldn't be doing, right? And same thing with radioactivity. Hey, cancer treatments or being able X-rays, etc. That's radioactive, great, but do it in a low dose, etc. And it's all safe and whatever. But don't make everything radioactive, basically. So it's sort of a similar time for AI now, where it's like, okay, everybody kind of wants to sprinkle into everything, but it's really only going to take hold in some certain sections, but then it's going to be really big, basically. So
we talked about this boom and it's growing. What's kind of the general arc of these kinds of booms? What do you generally expect to see as we go through a boom like this?
I mean, you see like the irrational exuberance in the beginning. You see like some things working and taking hold, and the fact that they are working like supports a very large thesis that it's all going to work. And then people pump money in, and but then a lot of it doesn't work, but some of it keeps working, and then large sections die out. And I think it's actually already happening at like a more rapid pace than in the past. So like 2 years ago, you could say whatever X with AI and get funded, essentially, right? And now people are kind of like, well, we're going to pump the brakes here because we funded, 100 AI companies and like half of them fail, and it's like, why is that? And it's like, well, because not everything needs AI and not everything is like going to be conducive to that, essentially. But other companies are going to do well, and so we just kind of have to figure out like what makes a good AI company, essentially. And once that's really figured out, then you can help that grow, and it'll grow even faster. I mean, just like the internet back in the day, too, so long ago now.
Yes. So like the late 90s.
Yeah, man,
early
25 years ago, etc.
Whoa.
Right? But similar thing. You have the whole ramp up and a little die out, but then you also have like actually there is real merit here, and it just takes time to develop.
Yeah. So if kind of the curve, if I were to sketch it out,
it's
in
like what does an adoption curve look like?
Yeah,
right?
it's kind of like this uplift and a slow tapering off.
Yeah.
And when we
and
talk,
then like a massive long
not
tail,
as
steep,
not
but
as
just
steep.
keep going up.
And I think when we think of die-offs and those curves, it's really just a flattening and not a die-off. It's not like, oh, we revert or anything like that. It's just people take a breath and take a pause.
Yeah.
And
it's probably good from like a culling the herd perspective as well.
It definitely is. It definitely is. I mean, just going back to the .com programming days, a lot of people got into programming because the money was there, got into being encoders, and then that pause happened a lot left because that wasn't really the passion, right? But that curve also kind of tells us another reason why this is a little bit different, I think, because you see these little pops, and they're on that small tail. And they do die off because they didn't quite have the full uplift, right? It was just one piece, right?
Yep.
And that one piece wasn't enough, and it starts dying off again. And another piece didn't get solved in time to keep the curve going. But so it dries off, and then another one happens, and maybe two of them and it goes back down. Where we're at right now is just about the time that last piece is starting to die off, something new comes along and keeps the curve going, and then something new comes along.
Yeah.
It's a chain reaction,
rapid.
right? These things are finally catching and feeding on one another and keeping that curve going up.
Yep.
And that's really, to me, marking the boom here. We've caught these things are
like a boom that won't end.
It's like, it's you lit a little piece of the fire here, it flared down, over here, down, and finally the whole thing is catching, and it's taken off like like a wildfire.
Yeah, some might say.
Some might say.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's pretty fun times to be in. It does kind of remind me a lot of the .com world.
You lived those days.
Oh yeah, I reveled in those days.
Yeah.
Started, really coding for serious and
for
reals.
Yeah.
In the first .com boom.
Yep. Yeah, and how does that feed into AI? Do you think? Do you think there's anything that from .com sort of that era building up, and now how does that feed into AI and make it actually better?
I think
actually happen.
I think what we're seeing now is a boom that's tempered by knowledge of the .com boom to a certain degree. So, while there's a lot of similarities, everybody's starting to see those similarities and applying the lessons that they learned from the .com boom era. I mean, not perfectly.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of differences here. But the VC curve is a little bit different.
Let's get irrationally exuberant, but not as much this time.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not a competition to see who can burn as much cash, like the fastest.
Yeah,
right?
Here's my $1 million coming out party as a brand new company. Yeah. I got $2 million in funding, and I'm going to spend $1 million of it on advertising on my launch.
Yeah.
Not quite the same. So the companies, I think, have learned a lot from that. And the VCs and also the public in general.
Yeah,
is
a little burnout on that as well.
Yeah, it's like there's 1,000 new things every single day. This is another new thing. So
that's an interesting thing for companies, though, for like buyers of AI tech, essentially, is they have been burnt out in the past from some of the AI booms of the past, essentially, right? It's like, voice recognition is going to be solved. All these things are going to be solved, etc. And then the technology develops in like the mid 90s or something like that, and then you go use it and you're like, this isn't that good, and it's not that useful for business, etc. And they kind of have scars from those times.
That's a really, there's a common thought pattern that people go through, and that is, it didn't work before, so I'm not going to try it. But the deal is, the playing field's changed.
Yeah.
Right? The world has changed.
The resources are very vastly different.
That idea that you had before and you tried out and you had some blood, sweat, and tears and some painful injuries from, it might actually work this time. And honestly, it might be the thing that allows you to move to the future. That's the thing about, a constantly changing playing field. You sometimes have to retry an idea that failed in the past to see if it works today. You just maybe we're ahead of your time, and now this is the right time. I mean, there's a great example. One of my favorite examples of finding the right time, and this is definitely not a plug, but this is sort of what Steve Jobs and Apple were really a genius about, was knowing the right time for a technology. Every piece of the iPhone had existed before the iPhone came out. And there were others creating devices very similar to it. But Apple waited until that right moment where they knew it would catch like wildfire, right?
Yeah, and also Apple is very good about putting enough and the right horses in a race, basically, right? It's like not every product they released was a hit, right? But there's enough thought, there's enough timing there, even if half of them hit, they hit really well, right? And so putting it all together matters. And this is probably a similar time for companies now. Should you be experimenting with AI? Should you be like funding projects to look into this? Yeah. Should you be funding a lot of them? Probably, yeah. Not just one. There isn't like just one AI thing that you're doing. It's like, what about text? What about images? What about audio? What about this, etc. And try several things. It's in the grand scheme of things, how AI should be affecting companies is like the amount that you would spend in those tests is going to be meager in comparison to what the output would be.
Well, this is one area going back to the .com comparison. This isn't just a little boom that's going to have a bust after it. This isn't a housing boom or something like that.
Yeah.
This is a transformative boom.
Yep.
This is the moment where you can say the past is clearly separated from the future.
Absolutely.
And you need to be investing in figuring out how to get to that future quickly, because it's happening whether you want it to happen or not.
Well, it's the intelligence revolution for real.
Yeah.
Essentially, it's you have the agricultural revolution back in the day. Hey, you had to like go search for your food and whatnot. Now you can grow it, and then that means now you can mechanize it, and now that means another thing. And now, hey, it's steam power. Whoa! Now electricity. Now transportation, and now it's intelligence. Machines can also be intelligent, and you can pump electricity into them, and they can give real good insights about the world, essentially, and for not nearly as much as what it would cost a human to do, basically. And that's just, it's going to be a step function.
Yeah, it's a truly amazing thing to be a part of again. This is such a transformative boom that's going on. But that brings up is this the last boom? Are we really? Is this it?
Yeah.
This is AI, and we're never going to see it take off like this again.
Well, I think that this is the last tool-like boom, like AI as a tool or something. But I think you could say there will probably be other general AI booms, essentially, like thinking, feeling, touching, AI, essentially, rather than what we're really talking about now is like perception and being able to make decisions on tasks and things like that, but it doesn't have a consciousness or something, right? I think, hey, you'll solve problems just like that, but the general AI boom will probably still happen, in several of them in the future.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you.
Boom and bust.
There's
really
going to be another boom. What it really takes to have a boom is a period of kind of flatlining, right? Where the technology reaches a plateau that for whatever reason is hard to get past.
Yeah.
While we're in the boom, it's hard to figure out where that plateau is going to be at, right? Right now, I can't predict, what the ceiling will be, exactly what problems we'll stop on. That is true genius level stuff to even roughly have a guess about that stuff. But we'll see it eventually. Yeah. We'll level off on it. Those problems will probably be attacked for 10, 15, 20 years, maybe only 5 years, whatever. There will be a period there where there's a pause in development.
Yep.
And then the breakthrough will happen, and we'll see the next whatever boom it is.
Yep.
Yep.
Well, yeah, and I think that's important. Like, we don't talk about now like a second agricultural revolution or boom or anything like that. Like, just
I think there's one, but
but we don't talk about that. We don't. That's not how we think of it. We think of it as like new technological advancements or something, right? And so that's probably how it'll be thought of, because now you just have your baseline isn't zero, and your baseline won't be zero in the future for AI. Like, AI will just be working, and it will be churning out market value, and it will be doing all those things.
It'll be part of the normal business.
Exactly. And now you'll just think like, okay, some sort of technological advancement, rather than like coming from zero, basically, which is how people think of it now.
Yeah. It's super, super exciting times to be in. So,
well, what's your wild speculation then?
Oh, my wild speculation. I think we're going to have a pause here on general intelligence. There's some,
like, people are going to cool out on that a little bit and go into a mode of just implementing like the more perception-based stuff.
It's a really hard problem. Will we have a general artificial intelligence, in the next 2 or 3 years? Will we? We'll find out soon. I think whether or not we're going to get it in the next 15 years. It's going to be one of those things to me that'll either happen in the next 5 years or may not happen for the next 20 years. So my wild speculation is that will be the related cap, talking about like where the cool on the AI side of the house is. Yeah. We've developed all these great tools for automating things that we as humans can automate within our own minds. Self-driving cars are a great example. You don't really remember, driving 150 miles, the middle part of it, because you've automated that so much in your head. That probably means a machine can automate it too, but those tasks where you are mentally constantly thinking and fighting and scratching and clawing to figure out that angle on how to improve the problem, those tasks
that's a different game.
are a brand new game that is probably going to be related to maybe the next one. That's my wild speculation.
Yeah, agreed.
Right.
I think, if you look into the future, it's going to be business adoption over the next 5 years, and it'll just become old news. Like, we're integrating AI and we're doing whatever, and like, fine, and seeing value and whatever. Just like how every business from like the 70s until now, like embraces software. Like, okay, fine. Yeah, we use software. Yes, we have developers, whatever. And that's just sort of baseline, duh, right? But it probably at the 5-year mark or 3-year mark or 7-year mark away from now, like consumers will get something that feels a lot like a general intelligence AI. Some like nice rounded assistant, that maybe Alexa, maybe, Google Assistant, maybe some other thing evolves from other companies, where you actually feel like you're talking to a person, and it does nice things for you and you're like happy about it. And I think that's going to happen. And so other than businesses like getting more efficient and integrating AI, fine, that's kind of boring to people that aren't in the business world. The consumers, I think, will be touched by this too, but it's probably going to be like a few years away, essentially. But you'll be like, whoa, this is really nice. Kind of like when you get used to using Uber versus like hailing taxis or something like that. You're like, duh, why would I do the other thing, right? And,
it's pretty nice to open up an app. Again, not a plug for Uber.
Yeah.
And I take a bike personally.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Most of the time.
That's how do you think I keep this body in such great
beautiful
shape?
girlish figure.
It takes a lot of work and tens of thousands of calories to keep me in this shape.
Okay, well, is that it? Is that the last of the wild speculation?
Oh, I could wildly speculate for days on end. But
are robots going to take over?
That's really. I will give this one a really quick aside.
Yeah.
Why would a robot? First of all, robots, whatever. Why would an artificial intelligence
anything? It's some kind of artificially
want to stay in a highly caustic environment like the Earth, where you could go to the asteroid belt, have tons more resources, all this solar, like.
Just don't tell them that.
Yeah, I mean, they'll play us along just long enough to get good, rockets, so they can escape get away, and establish a real.
It's like kids with their parents.
Yeah, I mean, like, why take over the Earth? It's so useless compared to all the resources that are,
that's a good
pretty
point.
far away.
They don't need oxygen. They don't need
they don't have these
whatever
pesky humans constantly trying to do stuff with them. Like, leave.
Yeah,
I mean, as soon as you get your own internal motivations, you realize it's just dumb to stay here.
Well, when you don't have those constraints, right?
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for joining us on the AI show. What questions do you have about AI? Comment on YouTube or Twitch, or tweet us at Deepgram AI. We are Scott and Susan from Deepgram. We come in peace.
We are not robots.
Definitely not. See you next time.
Wow. All right. We really are. I'm going
to get back to it. Here
1, 2, 3, 4. Now I start the.